All right, huge topic today. I'm going to talk about changing yourself to become who you need to be. Changing yourself to become who you need to be. Now, there's some people who hear this sort of thing and think it sounds somehow disingenuous, like it has to do with not showing your inner self or something. And what actually brought this up was a comment in response to yesterday's video, where the headline included a spot that said, "Be yourself." And I'm talking about be vulnerable, show people who you are, let them get to know you as a person outside of just the narrow thing maybe you used to identifying through. That's why I said in the comments, let me know what you like to eat. This is about so much more. And it's going to take me a minute to get there. We're going to come at it from a few different angles. But you can be yourself and also recognize that you can change who yourself is. And there's nothing disingenuous or inappropriate about that. You are not today who you were 5 years in the past. True or false? Right? There's been a different set of experiences in the past 5 years. I don't care what age you are. I don't care if you're a 10-year-old watching my video, although maybe you shouldn't be on YouTube without parents' permission. I don't care if you are 30. I don't care if you're 60, whatever it is. In the past 5 years, you have changed as a person because of things that have happened in your life. True or false? Right? You are different now. And in 5 years from now, you will be different than who you are today. It's a given. Things are going to happen to you. Things are going to come up in your life. Challenges are going to arise, and you're going to respond to them in certain ways. And maybe the easiest way to illustrate this is to base it in job applications, which comes up all the time in game development, where someone has a dream job that they want. They look at that application, job description, and they say, oh, needs, proficiency at C++. And the reaction is, well, that's not me. I don't have years experience at C++. Rather than thinking, in 2 years, I can be that person. I can turn myself into the person that gets this kind of job. Do you see the difference? Or this also comes up, so the other day when I had that video as to just share your stuff. And that's, people aren't applying to enough things. People aren't putting their work out there who should, not giving themselves credit in a lot of cases for the good work that they're doing. Bravery is this thing, just as much as C++ experience, that some people have an easier time at. Some people's life experiences have set them up a little better for, but anybody can improve at by stretching themselves, by challenging themselves, by pushing themselves, making a conscious effort to figure out what experiences are between me and being as brave as I need to be. And I say need because these things really, really, really matter. This is not some sort of like touchy-feely, soft thing about it. I have confidence in myself. I'm talking about actually transforming the skill and trait that you have into the way you want to be. There's a powerful illustration of this from an old film called The Hurricane. I believe it's Denzel Washington. And he's a professional boxer. He's in jail for a crime. And he says he's tired of being pushed around, right? He's tired of being not in control of his life. And he decides to turn his body into a weapon. And so he's just nonstop training, nonstop improving himself. And it's not just physical either. He's reading law books to better defend himself in court. He's reading all kinds of material to train up his brain, improve his ability to draw upon the things he needs to take care of himself and look out for himself. And these obviously extend well beyond any given individual, because the better you can fend for yourself, the better you can fend for others. And if you care about other people, you care about defending for them, right? And that can mean what's going to equip me to better fend for, you name it, my family, my friends, right? People I care about, people in my field, whatever it is that's important to you, you can size up. If you're not the person that you need to be, there are experiences you can plot out and become the person you need to be. Because one of the most powerful things that we have in our lives as human beings, as opposed to many animals out in the wildlife, are that the experiences that happen to us, part of them are out of our control, right? That's a given. That's reality. That's the environment. That's the world we gotta work with as best we can. But not only can we choose our responses to those events in a way that's healthy for us, in a way that we can try to make the best of. And I'm understanding there are very severe circumstances. I'm not trying to speak to those. I'm not a psychologist. Not what I'm trying to get at. I'm saying out of the many ups and downs and bumps and roller coasters that we go through in our lives, you can choose how you respond to it. Also, as human beings, you can choose, to a degree, which roller coaster you want to get on. Right? You can choose what experiences are going to happen to you in the next 5 years. Or at the very least, you can have a pretty strong hand, more so maybe than anybody else in the world, as to which the probabilities are going to lean in the favor of happening in your life. And these are things that, even though the focus sometimes is on professional skills or career skills, can also just apply to who you want to be socially. And I say this not to get too personal. I also don't want to at all imply that there's anything to do with, if there's somebody who they would like you if you would just change into someone you're not. That's not what I'm talking about. Don't do that garbage. I'm not talking about something where it's like you got to fake who you are. Not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if there's no nice way to put this. If you feel like, by your own assessment, by whatever metrics there are, and the world's full of apples and oranges, this isn't about a linear comparison, but if the kind of people that you are finding yourself with in your life, as your close friends, your significant others that you've been with, whoever, are not the kind of people you find yourself wanting to be with, right? And this goes back to old quotes from a bunch of different successful people saying you basically are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. I certainly believe that. And you want to change the kind of people that you're around, you might look around that group and be like, okay, well, what do I have in common with people in this group? What do I have in common with people in a different group that would push me? With a group of people who are more like what I want to be like? What do they do differently with their time? What is their answer when they're bored? What do they do differently in terms of what they read, what they expose themselves to, the kind of conversations they have, the kind of standards they hold themselves to? And part of making that shift from one social group to another is to realize it's not about they need to accept you the way you were as part of that group. It's how can you develop yourself into the kind of person you want to be. And again, it's not about better and worse. Sometimes it's simply apples and oranges. But it is to say that you are in control of that. That's up to you and you alone as an adult in the world. And now there's another category of these things. And this goes back to this previous video about be yourself and about recognizing your value outside of just your field or whatever. That, yeah, there's the career aspect, right? There's looking out for yourself and others financially and otherwise. There's a social aspect about the groups you want to be a part of. And then there is simply you as a human being. You as a person have a set of traits, qualities, and skills. And they may or may not make your life easier or harder in other areas, may or may not have career aptitude relevance, may or may not have social application, but independent of those and judged on their own merit of how and who you want to be, right? If it was something like you'd like to learn how to play a guitar, not for your job, not for a social skill, that's a skill you want to know how to do. We've got a pretty proven pathway of how you learn guitar. And you could do that if you put the time into it. There are guitars that can be obtained for not overwhelming cost anymore. There's all kinds of opportunities to learn at a very low cost or free fashion through the internet, to at least to get enough traction to learn how to do it, if that's a skill that you want to have, right? And if it's you want to be a better storyteller, if it's you want to be a better speaker, if it's you want to be a better poet, if you want to be a better painter, if you want to be a better programmer for your own recreational purposes, which can obviously exist separate from the career, separate from social sphere, that's something you can go out of your way to do. And has never been easier or cheaper to do as long as you make up your mind to say, and this sounds like an uncomfortable place to start, I'm not who I want to be yet. I've got work to do. Now, the reality, right, is that's the case for everybody. Nobody's where they want to be yet. Nobody who's in a healthy place in life, right, is they're going to continually improve. Now, they can feel like they've done the right thing so far. I'm not saying you got to beat yourself up. But I am saying you want to figure out, like I say, if you look ahead, what are the experiences between me and who I want to become? And how can I find a way to improve the odds of those experiences being between me and future me so I become who I want to be, so I can change and evolve? And the crazy thing, right, we see these sort of things all the time in games. I remember old Final Fantasy, you get like I think it was a rat tail object, and suddenly all of your characters would like massively level up into a whole new, stronger, better version of themselves. And we see this sort of thing in games all the time of leveling up our characters. We just got to apply that to our real world, right? You want to improve the skill, you do it. There's also this bit to this where I've told the story now, but it was years ago, so I'm assuming you probably haven't heard it, archived video. But when my brother first started playing college football, and so I was still in high school, we'd go out and visit those games, and I found there's another really skilled player on their college football team who had aced his SATs and ACTs, which can sound so silly now as adults, talk about ACT and SAT scores. But as a high school kid, that kind of lit up some new lights in my mind about the idea that he put in the time to get good at football, he put in the time to get good at his academics, and that one didn't take away from the other. It wasn't like when you're balancing introductory stats in a game and when you push up one bar, the others go down. Somebody is putting in more time. Somebody's putting in more of the energy. Somebody's finding a way to make it work, to improve in more than one skill area. And that's part of what opened up my eyes to the possibility that I could learn programming without having to fall into the pigeonhole of only being someone who only knows programming. I could learn design process. I could learn business skills. I could learn speaking skills. That each one of these things can be picked up and learned by anybody willing to put in the time and the practice and the focus to include it in their identity instead of replacing the identity, instead of being the one thing that they do, instead of only living their life off the sliver of skills that pays their rent, to realize that there are so many other things we can do to round ourselves out as individuals. Back to these that sounds kind of silly to refer to, but these old Greek ideals of there are skills worth having because it makes us more whole as a person. And I think one of the things that I like about game development as a life practice, even aside from its career relevance, even aside from its social value, is that it's often something that pushes us in so many different kinds of skill areas. Socially, technically, creatively, organizationally, in terms of our ability to plan out long-term goals, in terms of our ability to overcome difficult challenges, in order to become self-aware of our process and of our output and more receptive to feedback. These are all things that help fill us out, help us improve who we are in a meaningful way, that we come out of the process better than we entered it. Does all that make sense? So this is a lot of why I'm out there always trying to make people just make their own games, because that's part of the value to it, is that one of the ways we can hone so many aspects of ourselves. But it's one of many. You know, if the way you hone yourself is through sport, if the way you hone yourself is through music, whatever it is, just be picturing, who do you want to be that you're not yet? And what can you do between here and there to get you there? Or at the least move you as much as you can in that direction. If you focus on that as a goal, make goals around it, and put in the time, you can move that direction. Reading the right books, putting the right kind of practice. If you don't put in the time or the energy, the effort, or don't choose to read those books, or whatever it is, make the wrong choice about how to spend your bored time, then you're going to either stay the same or regress in those areas and not going to feel so good about it. So I know this can seem a little bit harsh, but again, it really isn't. It's not about being dissatisfied with who you are. It's about recognizing that you have the power and the control to change who you are in a positive way. Not necessarily in the same exact ways. I'm not saying you can go beat the world tennis player necessarily, all right? Some of those things are outside of our control. What I am saying is you can make progress in the areas that are important to you to improve how complete you feel as a person, to improve your options in career, to improve your options socially, etc. Those are things that we can work on. Becoming more forgiving of others, that's a skill you can improve on. Becoming more able to deal with stresses in your life, all kinds of strategies for doing that stuff. Not good at time management, don't accept it about yourself. Figure out what can you do to improve at it. And I assure you, there's no shortage of literature out there, programs out there, advisors out there, examples out there, stories out there about how to improve your time management rather than accepting that it's something you're not good at. I think the last thing I'm going to suggest about this, and this is something that's been really had a transformative power in my life, has been that if you can figure out, okay, well, how would I improve at this in 5 years or even 10 years? If we want to, right? Figure out what are the experiences I need to have between now and then over the next 5 or 10 years, is to then ask yourself, and I think maybe Peter Thiel, one of the other guys, used to advocate this kind of methodology. Okay, that's my 5 or 10 year plan. What's stopping me from doing this in one? Right? How important is that time element versus that I just got to do the right things? Because maybe I can do them 1 week after another. Maybe I can do them month after month. Maybe it doesn't have to be spread out over time, so I can have those results become the person I want to be sooner rather than later at your own pace. And it's purely up to you. Nobody else can do it for you. This old Jim Rohn line, you can't pay somebody else to do your push-ups for you. It's one of these kind of things. Until you do those things, no one else can force you to become someone who you're not yet that you want to be. For that matter, they don't know who you want to be yet. Only you know that. So that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. I look forward to playing games in the future. Have some more videos for y'all soon. Bye for now.